Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I've grown quite the beard since the last time I've talked to you guys. Been busy with some projects. But I'm here with another video. This one's about environments. And specifically I'm talking about the Angular environment. We're going to use the Angular environment in order to have two different Firebase apps. One is going to be for the alpha and then one is going to be for production. So let's set that up. I'll show you guys how to do that. And by the way, the benefit of doing this is basically you have like much more robust apps. For instance, if you're building a user-facing app where you still have a lot of work to do, but you want to release a version to the users, well, you can develop it on the alpha app in Firebase and then push all the test data to that alpha app. And then as soon as you're ready, you can deploy to production, and then like production just has a clean slate, and then you can just use that for all of the production data. And so like if you're testing something while you're still developing, you won't wipe out all of the user's data, which is always a good thing. Sure, we'll use routing. I like SCSS. Oh, and by the way, if you're not familiar with the ng command, be sure to check out my tutorial on Angular basics, and then that'll show you like how to set up Angular so you can build websites using this awesome framework. Just makes building websites a lot faster. Alright, so the project's all generated, so now I'm going to open it in VS Code. Alright, then I'm just going to pull up the terminal down here, because we're going to need to initialize Firebase. But first, we actually need to set up the project in Firebase, so I'm going to go to the console. Alright, and let's get some new projects here. Just going to call it the same thing, env test. And then I just keep the regular name, that's like the production one. And then I put alpha at the end of it if it's an alpha app. Like, the reason it's called alpha is like the scheme of readiness of the app is usually alpha, beta, gamma, and then production. But I don't really want to set up like 5 different projects. I really only need one for testing. I just call that one alpha, and then I need one for production for the users. So again, that's this one. Env test, that's the production one. And then I need another one, env test alpha. Alright, now I'm going to go back to the env test, which is the production app, and then just grab this config right here, and then I'm going to go paste that into the source, into the environments prod. So I'm going to put that right here, and I'm going to put it under an object called just Firebase. That's fine. Okay, so this file, environment.prod.ts, this is just a bunch of configuration, and this can really be used for anything. Like if you're using Stripe, you could configure stuff in here, like your Stripe public key or something like that. You could put that in here. But for us right now, it's just Firebase. So this is the production file, environment.prod.ts, and then there's a alpha file, which is or I like to call it alpha, but it's really whatever you want it to be. So I'm just going to paste in that Firebase, and then go and grab the other config from alpha, and then just paste that in there. So again, all this info is just configuring, like this is the API key for Firebase. And we're going to be using this in just a second. First, I just want to install Angularfire 2 because we need to write some stuff to the database, and I just want to make sure that we have this installed first. So I'm just going to grab that, run that in here. Alright, that's all finished. Now I'm just going to go back in here and make sure that there's a database. So I'm going to create a database in test mode for each project, because we're going to write something basic to the database, just so that I can show you that it does use different databases, which is kind of the whole point of having like alpha and prod. Okay, so end test, let's do the same thing again. Alright, now I'm just going to go over here to the terminal and then run Firebase init. It's important that here I choose env test, not env test alpha, because I'm choosing the default one, and I like the default one to be production. You can set it up any way you want. I'll show you what I mean. I just need to finish this setup real fast. Okay, so if I run Firebase use, then you'll see that it says that these are the project aliases, and that just means that these are the different Firebase projects that I can potentially use with this project. And so default is env test, like I was saying, so this is the production one. And so it says at the bottom there, if I use dash add, then I can add another project. So I want to do that to add the alpha one. So I'm going to select the alpha one, and then you can see it's recommending, I type in a name here, it says staging, I'm going to use alpha. That's just my preference. So now if I type Firebase use once again, you can see that there are two now, and it has switched to alpha. And so if you run Firebase commands, they're always running using the one that's selected. So like if you run Firebase deploy, then you'll actually be deploying to alpha right now. If you want to switch, you can use Firebase use and then default. And then you'll see that it switches me to default. So if I run Firebase use once again, I'll just show you that now default is selected. We're not really going to be deploying right now, so we don't need to do that, but I'm just letting you guys know that if you're deploying, then you gotta make sure that you have the right one selected. Like you don't want to deploy to your test server when you actually meant to go to production, or vice versa. Alright, with that said, let's finish up the installation of Angularfire 2. Okay, so down here on step 5 for their installation guide of Angularfire 2, I'm just going to copy this part. So here I'm importing the Angularfire module from Angularfire. That's the thing we installed a couple minutes ago. And then environment. So I just want to explain what this environment is. Environment is imported from one directory back, which is going to be source, and then into the environments folder, and then it grabs the environment file. So that's this one. However, something I noticed is that inside of the angular.json, if you scroll down, you'll see that there's this configuration for production, which will replace that file, environment.ts, with the environment.prod.ts. And so this is what actually makes building with --prod switch environments. Alright, so now that you know what production means, which means that when you're building the app or when you're serving the app, it'll basically just switch out the production one in place of the regular environment file. Okay, so I'm just going to run ng-serve so that we can see our app in action right now. Alright, and there it is. There's the app. We're going to finish that setup in the module of importing Angularfire 2, and then we're just going to write something to the database so that we can test this stuff out. Alright, so inside of the imports, they just do this. They initialize the app with environment.firebase. So again, this environment is pulled from here, this file, which will be replaced if we're using production with this file. And then, so we're just reaching inside this config variable called environment. and then grabbing the Firebase, and then that's just basically a JSON object which has all the Firebase info. So that's what Angularfire 2 wants us to do, just initialize the app with like the Firebase info, the Firebase config info. Okay, so once we do that, we can just go down and then use it like they recommend inside of a actual component. So let's go just inside of the home component, and then I'm just going to import Angular Firestore up there, and then make a constructor, and then simply just inside of the constructor I'm just going to say this.db. We're just going to add an item with the date, so timestamp new date. Okay, so this is just going to add an item to Firebase as soon as we load the app. So it's auto-reloaded, so it should have done it. We might have an error. Yeah, looks like we have an error. It says there's no provider for Angular Firestore. Let me just make sure that oh, whoops, I didn't inject Angular Firestore down here. Angular Firestore module. You need that, otherwise you can't use Angular Firestore. That one's just the generic one for all of Firebase. So hopefully that worked now. We didn't get any errors. And you can see very importantly that here in the console it says Angular is running in development mode. Call enable prod mode to enable the production mode. Actually, in your app it already does that. It checks that inside of a file called main.ts. That's just here towards the root of the app. Here they just check to see if it's production, then they call enable prod mode, just like that warning was saying. So that's already handled by default if you generate an Angular project. And so I'm just showing you how it all kind of works together. Since our app is loaded, I'm going to go back to Firebase console, and here we see that alpha has items, and then it has that timestamp 9:53, so that was 1 minute ago. If we refresh the page again, we'll see that we probably get another one because it's just going to keep adding them. Yeah, so there it is. So you can see that it's writing to the alpha one, and that's because, again, we're in development mode, and so it uses this file, which is the alpha configuration. So it's not production, it's the alpha. Okay, and then I'm going to switch over to test here and show you that this is empty, as it should be. So this is the production one, and it's empty. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to use the --prod in order to switch the production file in place of the regular environment file. So it'll take this file and then overwrite the contents of this file with this file. Okay, so the way we do that is we run ng serve, just like normal, and then --prod, and that'll basically just go, I'll show you again inside of the angular.json. It's just going to do all the stuff that's in here. Basically just builds a more optimized version and then replaces the environment file. And it's important to note that you can have any configuration you want in here. It doesn't have to be just Firebase. And then you can load that that configuration into any file you want. It doesn't have to be just the module file. But you would do it exactly the same. You just import the environment just like this. The path might change a little bit, but it's always environments/environment as far as like what the actual folders are called. Okay, so it finished building, which means I'm going to reload this now because I had to kill the server. And you can see here in the console there's actually no log anymore, like there's nothing telling us to call enable production. That's because this is a production app since we're serving it with --prod. And for the moment of truth, already know this was going to work because there are no errors, but basically just going to refresh. Here we are, we're in the production one, and then we can see we've added 2 items. I guess it did auto refresh, so I'll refresh again and then it'll add a 3rd one. Alright, and that's basically how you use environments to make sure that you have your data is separate. Quickly, I'll just show you how to use this with building and then deploying. So inside of my package.json, I like to set up something here called build prod, and then that just does this. It builds with -- prod. And by the way, if you're not familiar what build does, so if I run ng build, what that'll do is actually create a folder here called dist. It'll be in the topmost level. That folder is configured in the angular.json. It's right here. It's the output path. By default, it was dist/env-example, but I just changed it to dist because that's what I like. So you can see that it finished building, and basically that just transpiles or condenses all of that code and then puts it into this dist folder. And the reason that's useful is if you want to publish your website, you need to build it. You want those minified files so that it's all nice and fast for the user. Yeah, so that's ng build, and then if you use the -- prod, that basically makes it so that it uses the prod configuration instead of the development or the alpha configuration. Anyways, I just wanted to give you guys one last little cheat. By the way, if you guys aren't familiar with these scripts right here in the package.json, these scripts can be used to run commands. So if I run npm run build prod, this is the name of the script, so this one. So this matches this. Npm run is just how you run one of these commands. And it's npm because this package.json is for npm. This declares all the dependencies. Anyways, I like to have a special command in here called publish web. And what that'll do is it'll actually run build prod, so it's going to run npm run build prod, and then it's also going to deploy Firebase deploy -- only hosting. So this is just kind of a quick way to build and then deploy, and then the and means that the first command needs to succeed in order for the second command to be run. And so if I run npm run publish web, that'll call this, which will build prod, and then it will publish to the web. So if I run that, it'll start doing that. I'm not really going to wait for it. In order for that to work, you need to have hosting enabled in your project. When you ran Firebase init, you've got to choose hosting in there, or you can always run Firebase init again if you need to set that up. Yeah, so that's environments, you guys, for keeping the data separate from the alpha for testing and then from production for the real users. It's just best practice to keep them separate. Big companies use a lot more layers in between. They have like alpha, beta, gamma, and production. And I don't think most people really need that. I think you only really need 2, if 2. Like, if you're just testing something, you only really need 1. But if you have real users, you should have 2 for safety. But yeah, thanks for watching all the way to the end, guys. Be sure to like and subscribe if you do enjoy my content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.